direction to be a fairy tale. I mean, I guess it could still be. It doesn't have to be Mulan, right? But it kind of makes sense it would be. But see, this perspective worked out really well here, better than this did. So get rid of that. And we'll stick with this perspective here. I guess I can draw, not, let me see. This is kind of how I envision this perspective. You know, it's like everything's kind of leading this way. So you can kind of see like this. I'm using my mouse, sorry, it's kind of crooked, but you kind of get the idea here, right? So something like this, visually, you're going into a kind of a focal point here. And then here's where it becomes kind of weird. Like you would expect this, right? And that's what kind of where I deviate from what I should be doing as an artist. Instead, what I do is I create a new perspective after this horizon here. It's like a reset horizon. It's like a black hole. You go past this spot and everything changes. So now we're back to like almost a standard kind of perspective here. But then up here in the head, I've just introduced a third perspective. Maybe not that dramatic, but you know, something like this. And then we got another focal point here. So that's 3 different perspectives. And it's kind of following the head, you know? So I have 3 focal points in the artwork right now. And this is actually kind of a focal point too. So 4. It's like a chakra going right through the middle of them. But that's kind of my, if you wanted to get into my head when it comes to visually representing focal points and how I like to do that. And then of course you got all this flow motion with these elements, and they help direct the eye. Like this little overlap. Okay, this is getting messy, I can't show it anymore. Okay, here. This little thing with this gold texture is kind of it's flowing into here so that you get more visual guidance, I guess is a better way. It's to right here. And then once you're here, you'll probably start to look up and then you'll see the face. And then when you look at the face, see, most people, I didn't go to art school, remember, I don't have any formal art training. This is just my gut reaction, but I would assume most people start here and go like this, trying to find something interesting and work their way down. But I'm sure other people start on a corner and then work their way like this. But at least for me, I think I scan left to right and then like that, but in a zigzag pattern, kind of like this. Or I just land straight on the face, but the face is faded back on purpose so that it's not the highlight. The eye is usually, if anything, I'll bring it in, but so in this case, that's kind of what's going on. Adam, I'm using, what the hell's it called? It's called Yellow Duck. Oh, it says remove. You can't see it, but it's called Yellow Duck. And it's an app that you use with another program called OBS. OBS is the broadcasting system, open broadcast system or something. And you have to use both of these apps at the same time. So if you use OBS, I guess I can show you what it looks like. This is the program. Whoa, never mind. Now we're stuck in a hall of mirrors. That's hilarious. But yeah, it's recording the screen. And recording my microphone too. Because Instagram is so stupid that they don't freaking have a app for streaming a desktop. Because they want everybody to look at their phone vertically. It's like, you know, people can freaking turn their phone landscape. So why don't you guys build a damn software for content? You know, you keep trying to get people to do content. Well, you guys make it very difficult for people who do things like I do, because we can't do shit when it's vertical. We work in a more of a horizontal kind of life, you know, everything's horizontal. But if they could ever come up with an app, that's what this Yellow Duck, that's what this app is pretty good at. It lets you log into your Instagram and it lets you do kind of like, well, what I'm doing, like but I can only share my screen vertically, so I'm condensing my large horizontal 27-inch monitor. I'm chopping it up into two sections, a larger vertical part here for the Photoshop, and then a smaller top horizontal part for my bridge, which is showing you all my images here that I'm using. Because it's very difficult for me to do these videos and to have to go from screen. You don't even see what I'm picking from. I could disappear for like 3 minutes. You're like, what happened? And I was over here looking at pictures. You guys had no clue. So I think that's where that's why I have to show you to show two monitors on a desktop with a vertical format is extremely frustrating. But so far this is not too terrible, because I can still see 2 or 3 images layers here, and that should be good enough for me to work. But you'll see I only use portions of photographs most of the time. So and again, I'm still in the idea stage. Remember, we're just having fun here. I'm not really sure where this is going, but I'm just building the composition. I think we might be beyond saving her eyes at this point. I just don't think I want to... I kind of want to hide the eyeball, at least one of them. But the problem with that is if I were to do that right now, that means I have to create a very bright light source behind her entire head up here, but then I just established the ground here. So, pardon me, because I like this tunnel as her eye as an idea, but what I can do, and I've done this before in other artworks, I can create foliage to make it look like it's a crown, tree crown kind of top. That's going to require, if I like that idea, I could do that. Here's a good example, just a photograph to show what I'm talking about. So in this case, you have these tree limbs are creating a border, which would also imply the ground above it. So that's where the surrealism comes into play. Just do a real rough idea here, but if you create this boundary here, now you created a floor with a ceiling. Now it feels a little bit more like it makes possible sense, even though it's not very realistic. But it could be a layer within a layer, and that gives it more visual interest, I think. So that's how I do my kind of compositional building. I start with an idea. Like, look, this branch follows the shape of an eyebrow or an eyelid, and see how that already created the shape of an eyebrow here. So that could be used in that situation if I wanted to make her face completely floral or full of elements. You could do flip it horizontally, and you can follow the eyebrow this way. And if you do that, let's take this away for a second. You can do that. Here's the eyebrow, right? Now you could control the flow of ideas around her nose. Could be a tree trunk idea where this tree is coming out of, and then you can build a scene inside of her eyeball or out here on the cheek, because that's the cheekbones are higher, right? So you could do like a rock or a boulder or something there. So that's me thinking, like, hey Danon, hey, hope you're doing well, man. So yeah, like, that's my thinking out loud of ideas. And that's why my compositions have a trillion layers, because I'm not 100% sure what I want to do until some things just click. And what I could do, there's another artist that I really enjoy looking at his artwork, or her artwork. I'm not sure her gender or his gender, but he does a lot of surreal paintings. And what he'll do is she'll do this before she paints it, I assume, just to get an idea. But I'll try to show this to you. This is called Liquify. It's like one of the older, everybody knows this filter from Photoshop. But now it has ability to, do you see what's happening on her left, on her eyeball? But this is a filter where you can actually adjust the facial features. You could actually make her smile. It's kind of weird, but that's not exactly what they do. They do this kind of thing where they like do a little, not that much, but they do like a little bit of a twirl like this, and then they incorporate like you can move things around like this, and it's kind of gross, but what they do is they incorporate a smoke or like a ocean wave or some other thing into the body, so it actually matches that funky look. So that's kind of ugly, sorry, but anyway, that's what they do. And then they create like a smoke coming in, and then they'll do that warp on it to make it look like it's refraction, which is really cool, and it distorts the image behind it. I'll have to, let's see if I can try to find that person's. This artist is it's a guy. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Try to find a good example of this. All right, I'm just gonna drag and drop it into my Photoshop. I am not stealing his art. Just showing you. This is the artist I'm talking about. Very popular. Surreal artist, and been, quite an inspiration for me just for ideas. Here's another one. Yeah, very, very, very talented artist. Yeah, here's a really good one that shows the distortion. Yeah, see how elongated the proportions are, and look at the eyeball. Look how the eyeball is actually being dragged out as something exits through it. So those kind of things are really interesting to me. This artist, I can't pronounce the name. I apologize because it's definitely I don't know what nationality it is, but I'll just type it in here. Sorry, I was not prepared to do this. I'm not trying to. There you go. That's his name. Ayakut Aidogudu, I guess. I'm sorry. I Charlie, terrible at pronouncing names, but anyway, he's been quite an inspiration, just compositional ideas, and I love how, of course, my stuff's way more complicated visually, but his are a little. I mean, in the background, his are more minimal in the background, but like so. The idea of bringing environments into the composition and how they interact with the person or foreground. It's a challenge for sure, because most everything will look. Surrealism is weird. You have to. Well, that's the whole point. It's weird, but you have to get it right enough so that it's got a touch of reality, so it doesn't feel too alien. What am I trying to say? You don't want it to be too scary or too unrealistic that it doesn't really make sense. But at the same time, it has to be unrealistic and not upsetting. It's like uncanny valley kind of thing where it feels like it could be. Like it's possible that really exists, but at the same time, it's very almost dreamlike. It shouldn't exist, and if I saw that in real life, I'd be kind of worried a little bit, like uh-oh. But at the same time, it'd be really cool to watch and see, as long as I were safe. But yeah, that's kind of like when I come up with these ideas, I think a lot of that is based on thinking, what can I do that's pushing the boundaries of acceptable, but at the same time, still you can tell what it is. Like that, you can tell that that's a waterfall, but it's also, you can tell it's somebody's face and head. Because all you do is just do, if you just, when I did this on one of my arts recently, I just clustered and cluttered everything into the shape, and it turned into just a blob of photos, and it didn't really, you kind of lost the impact of it. And I think I was being too hasty with that piece. Came out pretty good, but it didn't feel like it was very considered, especially from the perspective. So now when I'm doing things, I'm trying to be a little more mindful of those ideas. And we talked about waterfalls. Another reason I really like waterfalls, they help the eye naturally because of the contrast. Your eye follows a waterfall naturally, easily, so it requires less effort, like from the art standpoint, to actually get your attention visually because of the contrast. And there's already motion because it's water and it's moving. So even in a static photograph, so again, I'm just assembling ideas at this point. And And I'll probably throw away half of this stuff. Do you see how the landscape naturally curves up as if the head was like a container holding up the land? See, those kind of things work out well with a facial shape. Might not work in this situation, but it's worth exploring. And then once you erase the edges, it brings on a whole new dimension to the artwork. And I can extend this waterfall down to make it look like a real waterfall. And then I just have to color correct and match the lighting of the scene behind it. So something like this might be worth exploring, while still maintaining a bit of her, face, a bit of her eye and nose and stuff. Looks like it's pretty strong, crispy back there. Not blue so much. More like a red and green kind of look. Oh, what happened? I must have hit reset. Oh, I hit reset. That's funny. Not perfect, but it gets closer. And then what I'll do when I get the composition a little bit more set, that's when I start to do this part where I start to incorporate texturing and things into the composition to make it feel more like it's hand painted, or you're not 100% sure, is that painted or is it just photographs or what. That's kind of my thing, where I like to fool people a little bit. And that's why I really enjoy texture. And also, another reason I love forests is because they have a lot of elevation and lots of details and textures already in them. Like in this photograph, all I have to do is take away that waterfall, and now you have this whole kind of like nice, this perspective matches this perspective extremely well. Wow, like that's unusual, it works so well. I could even keep that waterfall if I wanted to. Another reason I use clipping masks and smart objects is because I'm not really guaranteed that I'm going to use something in a certain way. So I don't want to erase it and lose it. And I have to remember to save. I always forget to save. But yeah, I'm always using clipping masks. In this case, it's a bit. I kind of want it to fade into the background, because that makes it feel more like a painting. If you have the stuff just go straight to the edge, it doesn't feel like a painting as much. You kind of want it to fade it out like this. At least I think so. I have a good brush here. It's like an ink brush. It's like it's like a sumi ink kind of flowing brush. It has like a little edge to it. I use that. sometimes. And then my other favorite is the watercolor mess. I call it messy watercolor. And every time I click it, it randomizes the shape and the change, the direction. So it gives it more of a organic, erasing kind of organic feel to it. Now her body itself probably could be, I'm gonna put that in a group, and then I'm gonna clip mask the group itself and erase her form a little bit, because it's just too much. I want the background to bleed into her body a little bit more. I mean, we know she has shoulders. You don't have to show it all the way to the edge. So something like that. Just subtle. And then erasing her forehead and, erasing her top of her head a little bit would help with that forest scene later when we get to that part. See, I erased her forehead behind it. And then this texture is actually kind of a little complicated, but it seems to be working pretty well. And then I have a variation in the color that I picked earlier, but this one worked kind of well. I like having a backlight behind it because she's a silhouette, so something like this would be nice with the, with the strong light behind her. Helps her shape pop out more. I guess Instagram allows longer downloads. I mean, live videos now, because I used to get kicked off after an hour, and I've been here more than an hour. So we'll see what happens. Probably gonna get kicked off pretty soon, but. This is a very cool feature in a forest. It's a little too dark, a little too vibrant. Something to match that waterfall. Actually, this might be a good case to use the select subject. That usually, yeah, that kind of, not really. Never mind. That's a pretty complicated background. I'm not surprised. Photoshop can only do so much when you use an AI. So this is the kind of stuff I have the most fun designing, are these, these kind of things are challenging, but they're also not challenging to the point where they're overwhelming and frustrating, because I enjoy the challenge in this case. In some arts, they become just a nightmare trying to make everything work when it doesn't want to work, and some people enjoy that challenge. I really find it displeasing. And one reason I don't enjoy doing freelance too much, I get nervous saying that I'll do something, is because even though the client will say they like your style, they want it to do in your style, inevitably you still have to follow some rule of, well, it's got to look like this character or this concept or scene, and you can't just, if it takes place in the desert like Dune, you can't just do forests. It doesn't make any sense. So they won't, But I had fun on a project I'm working on right now. It's kind of like under wraps. I can't talk about it too much, but it's definitely, it includes kind of a forest, but it's more of a larger biome thing. So it's interesting. I hope it actually becomes a real thing, and I'd love to share it with everybody, but obviously right now it's all conceptual stuff. I can't talk about it, but I'm trying to see where this rock might work out. I think I'll leave it at the bottom. Maybe down here or something. Still got a little too much color in it. There we go. Oh, it matches the scene better. So right now I'm thinking this might be a good spot to do something interesting with a light source. I did this in another artwork. I had somebody kind of like looking up at this object, like this alien looking kind of globe or sphere. Now, if I'm lucky, I can find a photograph where there's somebody in the distance reaching up to like, or looking up to kind of in the scene. And I'm not looking specifically for a male or a female, but it could even be an animal too. And that's just going to be a lot of searching, because I know I have those things, but they're hard to find because I have thousands and thousands of photos to look through. You see all the owls that I used for my last artwork. So this person's looking up, but it's in the front. I need from the back. Let's see. Oh, that's right. I saw this model from this photographer. You can't see it, but I thought, oh, I could do a Dune poster because that guy looks just like the actor from Dune. Kind of cool. I would love to incorporate more of these statues into the artwork, but I gotta focus on building the composition, the landscape, the flow first, and then once I have that, then I can do all the fun little stuff on the side. Oh, yeah, I had these, I forgot. Secret garden idea, I like that. I use a lot of Shutterstock as well, just so you know. I buy it, of course. But Shutterstock's not the greatest, I'll admit it, especially with the models. A lot of them are looking at the camera smiling, and it's just not what you want. But they do have great resources like this, like a tree with the background white. You know, it's perfect. That's what I need. Still looking for a good picture of a guy or a girl looking up from the back, not from the front. And preferably one that I haven't used before. Sometimes I end up using the same asset several times. Ah, that's from the front. The lighting's wrong too. See, every photo's the front. Nobody does back. That has snow in it. I already used this one. Front again. I mean, I could make it into a silhouette, you wouldn't even know. But that would be good if it was from a distance and clear. That has potential. It's not exactly the front, but maybe. He's just actively walking. It doesn't really... We'll see. Maybe. The light source is really strong and it's to the right, so I'll have to move her. That's actually pretty good if this is a bright light plus the sunlight here. That might actually work. Yeah, that might work. Gives it a little offset too. It's kind of interesting. Before I shrink that, I'll try to select the subject, see what happens. Oh, it actually did a good job. Wow, okay, it did a good job. Usually it doesn't. So now I think I'll go with that for now. I can always change it later, but let me convert it to a smart object. And then let me do camera raw filter on it. And let's try to match the scene. So we want to do a little less warmth, a little more green. We'll go way down on the exposure. Crank up the clarity a little bit, and then just drop the saturation a bit, see what it looks like. A little closer. Drop the contrast a little bit, so her maybe a little shrink her a little bit. The size of the document, it's about 4.5 gigs. It's pretty big. It's like almost 5 gigabyte file right now. Because I have lots and lots of layers, and a lot of my layers aren't even being used because they're like background, maybe I'll use it later kind of thing. And a lot of them are smart objects too, so oh, that's okay, that helped. I forgot there's an adjustment layer on everything, so in this situation, I think I'm not sure what I want to do with the the globe or the glowing thing there, but kind of want to build up this shore, not a shoreline, but like a river. I save as a PSB, the large file size format, because it won't even let me save it otherwise. I guess that wasn't really necessary. I just was trying to make this fit somehow. Trying to give her something to stand on. Zoom in here a little bit. Trying to match the rocks down here a little bit more with the contrast. It's just me eyeballing it. So we got a light source, and we want to have light coming like this, and then you got light kind of coming down from the sun there as well. So you can see that she has a highlight on her right and top, which is good. Which kind of a little bit messes up the symmetry of everything, but we also don't want it to be perfect, right? So and then there's a way to kind of let the thing go behind the trees a little bit. Yeah. That's kind of cool when you give it a little depth like that. Like it's behind the tree. So I do have adjustment layers. I have a master adjustment layer. And I'll turn it on and off so you can see it. So this is without it, so it's obviously really dark and kind of too contrasted and kind of doesn't feel cohesive. And then I turn it back on and now it has like a kind of a painted, kind of like a texture on it, which is set to screen. And I'll try to, let me see if I can show that. I can't really zoom in on it, but this is my adjustment folder. It's 2 color lookups and a chalkboard texture that I use, set to lighten. So it's set to lighten at 50% fill, and then I have 2 adjustment layers. One's a special LUT, LUT LUT that I downloaded, and then there's another LUT that I use that's it's called 3-strip look. It's like the first one on the list that Adobe has built in. That one's set to 50%. So some of these LUTs I'm only using because of their luminosity. So this LUT, the color strip, 2 color strip, that actually just boosts the midtones a bit, and then this other one kind of washes everything out a bit, so it's not so crispy, I guess. And then this chalkboard texture probably does the most by giving it a little papery or chalkboard look to it. So I only work with those 3 because I tried doing this with lots of adjustment layers and it just makes the computer so slow. The other option is to do smart objects with filters, which I do a lot. So like this little person right here is a smart object, and I'm using a camera raw filter as a smart object filter so I can change it later. Because like right now, it's too orange, right? So I can go to make it more cooler, you know? Maybe add a little more green because she's surrounded by forests, so a little green in the background there. I can change the exposure so she has more contrast, etc. So I like to keep and boost the highlights maybe. I like to keep these certain aspects, I like to keep non-destructive, so I keep them in smart objects, yes. But some things that are kind of set, like let's say this tree right here, I've kind of set it. It's just a regular photo with a clipping mask. It doesn't have any adjustments. I manually color corrected it, and we're sticking with this kind of greenish. It's warm, but it's not too warm. It's got a little bit of cool gray in it as well. And then the gold, all these textures you see in the background, those will be the warm color pops that'll come in. So now with this waterfall, I could quickly find a waterfall picture. I haven't upgraded, or I'm sorry, I haven't gone through my folders and organized all my stock photos very well, so they're all over the place. But I have a waterfall specific water element kind of thing. So like I can use this, which already has a really nice contrast to it. Beautiful picture. And high res too. But see, that creates a very nice, I'm going to set it to lighten so you can just see the water only really. But that could create a nice kind of like splatter splash. But what we're looking for is more like an actual full stream of water. And it has to be, the angle is pretty much straight on. Which most waterfall pictures are either, yeah, they're like straight on like this one is. Time lapse kind of thing. That's actually a great photo with her standing there. You can do stuff with that. But in this situation, I would just want the waterfall part. It's not large enough, but in this case, I'm just erasing. I'm not worried about keeping a smart object because I just want the waterfall part. And I really like this watercolor brush because it kind of naturally mimics a water edge, water spray kind of look to it. But again, it's too thin. See, it's a good photo, but it's not what I need for that. So yeah, I try to avoid large waterfall images because of just that reason. It becomes huge and it takes up like the whole scene. Yeah, that's pretty good. Just try to isolate this one portion that looks like it's a potential. Although technically that much water rushing down, I don't think it would just fade out that quickly. So it's a little inaccurate. And then my little blend if trick, get rid of some of that black without having to set it to a screen or light and mode. Yeah, that's pretty good. And there's a little too much. This might work, just that portion in the background. Because that makes a nice misty kind of look. Yeah, I guess that's what I'm doing. Keeping the smart objects as adjustments inside the smart objects using filters. I don't know if it really makes the computer work faster, but all I know is if you create a adjustment layer, everything underneath it is affected, and that means the computer has to, everything even in the background, everything that you don't even want to, you might not even be using is affected. So that creates way more strain on the CPU. And as we know, Photoshop absolutely sucks when it comes to utilizing CPU usage, because they still, a lot of the stuff I'm doing is all single core performance. It's not actually even using it the way it could be to its full potential, because Photoshop just so, I don't know, they just kind of suck at, they're getting better maybe, but I've been quite disappointed. That's one reason I don't buy a new computer, because I use Photoshop exclusively. And you know, if the new computers don't really have much of a, they have all these new multi-cores, but none of them really have a really great single core, then it won't even be that much different than what I got right now, even though they're like really newer computers. It scares me, so I don't want to spend all the money for a couple $1,000s for a computer, because I need the pro computer. I can't get the standard version. I have to get like the highest level, one of the highest levels. But like GPU, a high GPU wouldn't do shit for me in Photoshop. A little bit, but that's more for 3D and gaming and stuff, and maybe video work. But there's a little, of course there's some GPU, but I don't think it's really that important. It's more like the RAM is the most important, having a high RAM. So I have 64 gigabytes of RAM in this computer, and even with that, there's plenty of times that it will crash. I'm just trying to create a background there, just to give it a little something. I'm just trying to match the waterfall. It's a little too rough, too much water for what I was wanting to do, but I think I can work with it.